Steve Jobs once said that people don't know what they want until you show it to them. And with incredible, almost spooky consistency, Jobs has produced new products that consumers discovered they really, really wanted. Well, now, just hours ago, Steve Jobs has resigned as chief executive of Apple, the company he built, just a month after Apple announced astronomical third-quarter profits of more than $7 billion. Here's ABC's Neil Karlinsky.
It was the resignation heard around the world. That's because Steve Jobs isn't just a CEO. He's been called one of the great visionaries of our time, a man on par with Thomas Edison for a new generation.
The news was pretty shocking. I didn't expect that this was going to come today. I mean, we know that Steve Jobs has been sick for the last several months and been on leave, but it came out of nowhere.
In a letter to Apple's board of directors, Jobs writes, "I have always said if there ever came a day when I could no longer meet my duties and expectations as Apple's CEO, I would be the first to let you know. Unfortunately, that day has come." If you have a cell phone, if you listen to music, if you use a computer at all, Steve Jobs has made a difference. But in the midst of all that, Jobs has quietly been in the fight of his life for years. He beat a rare form of pancreatic cancer in 2004, but came back to work to bring Apple to new heights. But after appearing extremely thin at a conference in 2008, there was new concern about his health.
I just wanted to mention this.
Jobs claimed it was nothing more than a hormone imbalance at first, then abruptly took a leave of absence. It was only after an appearance in 2009 that the world learned he actually needed a liver transplant, a fact kept under wraps until after the procedure.
I now have the liver of a mid-20s person who died in a car crash.
The tech world feared this day was coming. Even though he'll stay on as chairman of the board, the Steve Jobs era is effectively over. Apple's chief operating officer Tim Cook will replace Jobs as CEO, a brilliant insider who's kept the company on track and successful during Jobs' earlier medical leave. But as just about every analyst on the planet has pointed out before, he's no Steve Jobs.
Everybody you talk to at Apple is going to tell you Steve Jobs is one guy and one of his greatest skills is a talent scout. He's assembled the greatest team in the world, blah, blah, blah. But the truth is that Steve Jobs is a notorious micromanager. He is an overbearing boss with a reputation like nobody you've ever heard of in your life. And he is part of the reason that Apple is he is most of the reason that Apple is what it is today.
The reclusive billionaire always let his products do the talking. His signature black shirt, Levi's, and New Balance tennis shoes were generally only on display once or twice a year as Jobs took the stage to announce the company's newest product.
And we are calling it iPhone.
He agreed to sit down with us in 2007 after announcing the very first iPhone. And while he appeared relaxed, his iron grip on all things Apple was plain for us to see as he kept things short and seemed to have his PR people on edge.
No one bets 1,000. You've been called the Babe Ruth of Silicon Valley. Are you worried that you reach a point where there isn't another killer piece of hardware to come out with to wow the world?
You know, again, we don't worry about stuff like that. We just try to build products that we think are really wonderful and that people might want. And sometimes we're right and sometimes we're wrong. But I think we're going to hit a grand slam with this.
Welcome, Mr. Jobs. Looks like you have a fan club here.
Thanks, yeah.
In a strange and surprise move just a few months ago, Jobs himself was front and center and, of all places, the Cupertino City Council, pitching the construction of a new world headquarters for his company to starstruck local leaders. Steve Jobs founded Apple along with Steve Wozniak back in 1976, where he was best known for the Macintosh computer. But by 1985, he was out after internal conflicts, and the company was far from the leader in personal computers. But a little over a decade later, he returned with a vengeance. Just look at Apple's stock, from $5.48 a share on his 1997 return to $378 today. Enormous wealth built off a string of successes that have changed the world we live in.
If you look at Jobs and what he's done, there's only a couple of people in the past 100 years that can really be analogous to that. You've got Walt Disney, Henry Ford, and Steve Jobs, and you know, those companies still thrive. They don't do it in the same way they did when their leaders were around, but they still managed to make it.
In the cold, hard world of technology, analysts believe this will eventually mean an opening, an opportunity for the competition to take on Apple. But that will have to wait, because today isn't just a surprise, it's sad. Sad for the man who's fought with every fiber of his being just to go to work, to keep running the company he founded and loves so much. He wrote today, "I believe Apple's brightest and most innovative days are ahead of it." I'm Neil Karlinski for Nightline in Los Angeles.